Welcome, Internet Explorers. Today we have left the historic city of Cádiz and come to Seville,
where there's currently a heat wave, public health warning, 38 degrees this evening, where we're supposed to be going out and doing some exploring. So let's see how that goes.
It'll be fine. Welcome to the long free ride. Although our next stop is Seville, we planned a charging strategy for the route beyond as well. In part, this reduced the number of nights we were staying in big cities and reduced costs as well. So the software, a better route planner, said driving Cádiz to Seville would take 1 hour 15 minutes and we should charge the car for about 40 minutes to get it back to 80% full in the battery. Once we were planning to leave Seville, we would then charge once more en route to an overnight stay, literally on the side of the road. Approaching Seville, we crossed another cable-stayed bridge. Turns out we were 102 metres up, to be exact. This is the Centenario Bridge and was constructed as part of the city's preparations for Expo 1992. Looks like they're doing some current maintenance work though. We managed to park the car in an underground car park and pick up some fresh supplies for making our own lunch. Patio picnic in Seville.
We started our evening exploration of Seville by walking from our apartment hotel into its historic centre. It was great to see that it was pretty much a car-free area with a tram line running through it, providing public transport. As you'd expect from a city centre spanning centuries, there were many architectural styles living cheek by jowl. As we approached the square of San Francisco, it was clear from the decorations and crowd that something was happening. One of the altarpieces from the cathedral or a local church was ready to be paraded through the streets of Seville. I had seen this spectacle on a motorcycle tour of Spain and knew it would be worth stopping to watch. In some areas of Spain, the pasos or float is carried on long poles extending from the main structure. But in Seville, the tradition is to carry it on the upper part of the neck and shoulders. The men, who look like they're the front row for a local rugby team, are called the Costaleros. This literally translates as sack men, as their outfits include sackcloth elements with padding across their shoulders. Watching them file in under the float looked like some sort of Penn and Teller magic disappearing trick. Then the Costaleros lift the float and start to slowly turn on the spot with small, shuffling, rocking steps. Once the attendants are satisfied that they are lined up with the ramp, the men move forward. This took some time, so I've sped up the footage. I'm a big fan of the author Terry Pratchett, and I wondered whether the luggage, a treasure chest with legs, in his books was inspired by watching one of these processions. We did not have time to watch the whole procession itself, as we had a date with sunset, and she waits for no man.
So where are we, John?
No idea. Well, I don't remember those sorts of things. We're up in the air.
It's called Setas de Sevilla, I believe, commonly known as the mushroom.
It looks more like one of those plywood construction kits that you can buy on eBay and then put together and get like a working steam engine. In this case, you get some sort of thing in the city that everyone can walk around on. It's very nice.
Yes, but the fact plywood is quite concerning now that you've said that, considering how high up we are.
Yeah, seeing some of the welds, I think it's probably not plywood, but who knows?
There are bits of the structure that are wood. That's what it's famous for.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. So we've just come out of kind of a theatre thing where they were explaining the feeling of Sevilla. I didn't understand it at all.
I thought it was very good.
Production quality was good. We weren't allowed to film it, or we would show it to you. But yeah, there was a bit with the Ku Klux Klan and a funeral.
It was not the Ku Klux Klan. I've told you, their religious orders wear hats that kind of look a bit like the Ku Klux Klan. But they probably did it a long, long time before then,
Yeah.
as in centuries.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really understand that whole bit, but there we go.
Well, no, but it is part of the whole thing was getting the feeling of the culture, I think, and that's what it did. Did a bit of flamenco, a bit of stampy, bit of wailing, lots of good drone footage
Yeah, very good drone footage.
that I won't get. But
No,
there you go.
we're not allowed.
No. You need to be a commercial operator.
Yeah.
There we go.
Anyway, we're off to see the sunset up here. That's the whole point of the purpose.
Let's see what we can get.
Have a good evening.
See that in the end. Have a good evening.
We're going to have a good evening.
It was great to look over the Seville skyline from the mushroom as the city lights came on. The lights also started to twinkle on the mushroom itself, and this is why so many people visit this attraction at sunset, because as the sky darkens, the light show becomes ever more spectacular. Be aware that although these shots don't show too many people, they were 3 deep behind me.
We couldn't resist trying their selfie setup. But despite our best efforts, we're still working on mastering that art. Before we left, we made a dash to the bar for last orders. Sipping on Spain's local brews in a bustling communal atmosphere, we got a unique view of the underside of the structure we just boarding. It didn't quite compare to the breathtaking panorama from the top. By then, however, my stomach was growling, so we headed straight to a tapas spot for what was turning into a midnight feast.
The next day was a hot one, and we had a list of places to visit. First was the Plaza de Espania. Built as the centrepiece for the 1929 World's Fair, this building has a riot of colour and architectural styles. Around the curved front of the building, there are many ornately tiled alcoves, each representing a city or region of Spain. As we had just travelled from Cádiz and nobody was trying to pose for a selfie, we filmed that alcove. However, they were all just as impressive. It was a shame they were in the shade, as I'm sure it would have been even more impressive in better light. And this decorative tile work was also to be seen in many other elements of the structure. It brightened up the brick columns, covered many of the walls, and even went as far as covering the handrails in certain places. The rooms within the buildings are now used as government offices following a restoration around 10 years ago. Dividing the plaza from the building is a short semicircular canal which you could just imagine a gondolier navigating. Beyond the plaza is the Maria Luisa Park, and we headed there for some shade and hopefully somewhere to get breakfast.
We strolled through the vibrant park, stopping to marvel at the cascading fountains. John even struck up a friendship with a gaggle of ducks and ducklings. And it reminded me of his hours feeding pigeons in Bergen, Norway last year. Unfortunately, this time he was empty-handed, much to the disappointment of the local wildlife, but we did get to see some very cute ducklings. As for me, however, my stomach was rumbling yet again. So John's off filming somewhere. It's about 10:30 in the morning. It's already 28 degrees. And I'm still looking for somewhere for breakfast. So onward.
The somewhere I was filming was the entrance to the Palacio de San Telmo. This Baroque palace was built in around the 1600s and is nowadays another government building. The red and yellow facade of the main building must look great against the white of the main entrance, but once again the sun was hiding behind the building. We moved on and eventually found Michelle some breakfast. Sadly, it was just at a Golden Arches, but hey, they got good toilets. Next it was off to the Tower of Gold, or the Torre del Oro. This defensive tower was built by the Almohad Caliphate to protect Seville from attack from the Guadalquivir River. A large chain was strung between the two banks and, when raised, would block the river, hindering passage. Today it is a museum explaining the tower's use over the centuries and also the modern Spanish Navy. There's a viewing platform at the top, but the narrow castellations restrict a good panorama. In this shot we look to the northeast towards a modern commercial and shopping area in Seville. In the scorching heat of the day we walked back to the historic heart of the city.
After a morning of sightseeing, we sought refuge from the scorching heat at a charming bar. Our next stop was the iconic Royal Alcázar, a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1987, known for its stunning Moorish architecture. As we explored the palace's labyrinth of halls and courtyards, we realised why it's been featured in films like Lawrence of Arabia and recently Game of Thrones. The Alcázar is a masterpiece of Islamic and Christian design built over 1,000 years by a whole variety of monarchs. It's one of Europe's oldest royal palaces still in use today, and the Spanish royal family occupies the upper floors whenever they visit Seville. Every corner of the palace is a feast for the eyes, with intricate stucco carvings, Arabic calligraphy and dazzling tiles. Each of these symbolises the power and influence of culture and religion which has shaped and reshaped this site. I'd even describe the corridors as opulent. The Ambassadors' Hall, with its towering ceilings and grand arches, is a testament to the grandeur of the Moorish rulers. The Patio de las Doncellas, a courtyard with a reflecting pool, is a highlight you'll see on countless postcards. I could picture the vibrant life that once unfolded here, with courtiers, musicians and poets filling the air with debates, laughter and songs. Given the sights we'd already seen in Granada, Cordoba and Cadiz, I had come to expect courtyard walled gardens with lots of fountains, orange trees and places to mingle. This place did not disappoint. While the Alcázar's gardens were a welcome respite from the heat, navigating the palace with our audio guide was more than a bit of a challenge. The layout is complex and the audio descriptions didn't always match up with what we were seeing. We ended up getting very lost and spent a good portion of our visit just trying to find our way out. If you are planning a visit, consider booking a guided tour to make the most of your experience. The Alcázar is a treasure trove of history and beauty, but it's easy to get overwhelmed without a knowledgeable guide. The next morning, we crossed the Puente Santemo Bridge and were serenaded by a flamenco dancer. You'll know by now that it's one of John's favourite things to watch, but sadly, we had to push on quickly as we had tickets for a guided tour of the cathedral. We strayed past some interesting statues, but were on a mission to tour the famous cathedral. Seville Cathedral really is a masterpiece of Gothic architecture. It's the largest cathedral in the world outside of St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. They call themselves the largest Gothic cathedral in the world. But it is actually a fusion of styles. Almohad, Majeur, Gothic, Renaissance, Baroque, it goes on and on. It's absolutely huge and it's hugely detailed. This cathedral site used to be a mosque in 1182. However, after Seville's conquest by Ferdinand III in 1248, it was converted into the city's cathedral. Basically, they repartitioned the internal spaces to suit a Christian-style worship, such as creating 80 chapels. By 1401, Seville had become a major trading centre, and city leaders decided to build a new cathedral to replace the Grand Mosque. Local legend quotes the idea was, "Let us build a church so beautiful and so grand that those who see it finished will take us for mad." This impressive organ was originally made up of two instruments that sound from one single console with 4 keyboards and 1 pedal board. Sadly, one organ was destroyed in the 1888 earthquake and has since had to be rebuilt. We saw these 3 altarpieces with space underneath for the Costaleros to carry in a parade, just like we'd seen the day before, but I really didn't fancy having to polish all that silver. Once again, carvings in the seats for the choir were truly exquisite.
On the right-hand side of the transept lies the tomb of Christopher Columbus. Following his death in 1506, his remains, like the man himself, took a bit of a world tour. If you'd had his tour t-shirt, it would have had printed on the back venues such as Valladolid, Seville, Santo Domingo and Havana. Following another exhumation in 1795, his final gig is to lie held aloft by these fine-looking gentlemen. The chapter house with its elliptical Renaissance dome was just another overwhelming construction in a building running short on superlatives. But perhaps the highlight of the visit was seeing the altarpiece in the cathedral. Known as the Retablo Mayor, it is the world's largest altarpiece and is 66 feet high and 60 feet wide. This masterpiece consists of 36 gilded relief panels depicting biblical scenes. It was started by a Belgian sculptor and took over 80 years to complete. When you stood there in front of it, the sheer scale and intricacy was mind-blowing. Personally, I found it a bit too bling. In my opinion, less is often more when it comes to slapping gold on objects. Our tour ended up in the cathedral gardens, which was so obviously from the original mosque in their form and layout. Then we walked back to where we'd parked the car and headed out of Seville. With a long drive to our next destination, we decided to split the drive over 2 days. And also, roadside hotels are a bit cheaper than city centre ones.
Did you enjoy our guided tour of Seville Cathedral?
I would say that if you're going to book a tour of the cathedral, which is free to get into, it is worth booking it directly with the church, which is what we managed to do. The reason being is that the bloke will turn up with a set of keys and let you into places that all the other people can't go.
Including other tour guides.
Including other tour guides. So, yes. And so he spent a lot of time telling people that they weren't allowed to come in where we'd just gone in.
Yeah.
So, for example, the whole choir area we could get into and, be right there next to the lectern and all these sort of things. Everyone else was beyond a big gate that he'd got the keys for, and he wasn't letting anybody else in. So, well worth booking directly with the church. Our evening charge at Merida went a bit wrong, but we'll tell you more about that next time. Don't worry, I haven't over-gilded the stats. They are still plain and simple. We covered 214 miles, which is 345 kilometres.
We charged the car with 85 kilowatts, stopped twice, and were only stationary for just under an hour. 59 minutes, in fact.
We only use Tesla chargers, so the cost to us is nothing, but if we had to pay, it would have been £27.46. No more speeding fines, so no ancillary costs.
Now let's add that to the grand total for the trip so far. We hope the long free ride is demonstrating that you can do long road trips in an electric vehicle. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel to help us bring this message to a wider audience.
Next time on the long free ride, I have to visit a doctor, and unfortunately, we get given a reality check.